In March of this year, we left our home in Las Vegas and began our lives as full-time nomads. We retired to travel full-time, and in just 90 days, we made about every mistake in the book when it came to planes and trains. We went from Lisbon to the Algarve in Portugal, to Paris, to Wales, to London, through the UK, and now we're here in Amsterdam. We've had wrong seats, missed stops, way too much luggage, you name it, we did it. Now, if you're planning retirement travel, especially in Europe, this video could save you a lot of stress and money. Let's dive into the 9 big travel mistakes we've made so you don't have to repeat them. So let's start with our first mistake, which was not knowing luggage weight requirements on a flight. Remember this?
Oh yeah, we were so used to the American version of flying, which meant that you always had to be very cognizant of your suitcase dimensions, and we were really good about that. What we didn't take into effect was the weight, because, you know, for one thing, once upon a time, having a small carry-on meant having a light carry-on, but now with these new techniques for wrapping your items and putting them in little accessory bags, you can pack so much and they get heavy and they do get weighed.
Yeah, and that's actually the second mistake, which is related to that, which is not knowing how the specific airline that you're going to travel on, measures the luggage dimensions exactly. And we ran into this problem when we flew from Southampton to Amsterdam.
Yeah, what happened was we actually, it was a good situation and we didn't know it. In other words, we had, I have a backpack. It's pretty large. It's a bit bigger than the allowable dimensions on the flight that we were taking on EasyJet. And so we paid extra for it, and we got to the airport and found out that we didn't have to. And she kept saying, yes, because it's a backpack. And I said, but it's the dimensions are too big. She said, no, it doesn't matter, because backpacks are always okay. You can always find a way to squish them into the size of where you're going to be putting it in the plane. So it turned out that we kind of spent some unnecessary money on that one, but we learned our lesson.
You know, we're retired travelers now, and we both thought we were pretty experienced travelers before, but we've been finding that, you know, we make mistakes that new travelers make, and it's surprising that travel after 60 you can still be a new traveler, but as a slow travelers we are definitely new and learning as we go. So,
I was going to say, yeah, we're learning as we go, and also, we hadn't really done a lot of travel, not just slow travel, but any travel for a very long time, and things have changed. So there's always new things to be aware of, and we got a heavy dose of that in the past 90 days.
So that's a couple of mistakes that we made on the plane with regard to our luggage, but let's talk for a minute about some of the mistakes we've made on trains, because we've traveled actually more on trains than we have on planes, and probably have more mistakes because of it. You know, the first thing that I can suggest is that it's a mistake to not reserve train tickets early enough, especially we're talking about European train tickets. So that system's a little bit different than Amtrak, because sometimes reservation of a ticket is not quite the same as purchasing a ticket. So for example, we purchased a Eurail pass. We're going to continue from Amsterdam and travel through Europe on a Eurail pass. But the Eurail pass alone on some trains is sufficient and sometimes not. The times it's not is when you need to have reservations. So, and buying a reservation is not the same as buying a ticket.
Yeah, there's so many things to keep track of. And also, I don't remember if this is the case on Amtrak, but with the Eurail tickets, you don't necessarily have the same price day to day. They can really fluctuate. And as you get closer to the time of travel, it's going to be more expensive than it was before. So that's one problem of waiting too long. And the other problem is not just that the prices will go up, but that the tickets might not be available at all, because seats do sell out.
Yeah, and now there's another thing that happens with regard to, actually this is train, probably also true with planes, and we've run into this one too, and unfortunately cost us a fair amount of money, and that was And this was totally on me. You would think as a lawyer, I'm good at reading policies, and generally I am. But in one case in particular, I missed some of the fine print. And that brings us to mistake number 4, which is not knowing precisely the refund policy associated with your ticket or reservation. Now, in this particular case, well, let Deb
in
fill
this
in.
particular case, I kind of think that we have to cut ourselves some slack because we are pet sitters, and we don't do it through all our travels, but we do have some dates where we're blocked out sitting for people's pets. And somebody did do a kind of a last minute cancel. It was about a week before, so 8 days to be precise. So it turned out that we had to cancel at least 7 days before. Otherwise, it was 100% non-refundable, which gave us 24 hours to figure out what we were doing. And thinking that we weren't in that big of a rush because you just didn't really have to let a train know that far in advance that you were canceling. We waited a little bit, and we waited a little bit too long, and we found out the hard way when we tried to go online and get the money back, and it said total refund $0.
Yeah, I had learned that, I have learned now that train travel in Europe is certainly not the same as train travel in America on Amtrak. And I say that because, as we were getting ready to leave, our departure date from Las Vegas was a little bit up in the air, and we did plan all along that we would leave on Amtrak. And so I was well aware of what the Amtrak policies were when you use the Amtrak, the America's Pass, or the equivalent of the Eurail Pass on Amtrak. And in that case, you can basically cancel or reschedule until the last minute. And when I read the policy for the Eurail Pass, there was a provision about being able to change up to an hour before. What I misread about that was you could only change the date and the time. You could not change the destination of the ticket. And so I learned the hard way about that train travel in Europe is certainly not the same as train travel in America.
Yeah, also, did we ever have to worry about seats completely selling out on trains? I mean, I know that they've been pretty packed, but to completely run out, I don't think we ever saw that.
On the pass, it is possible. So if you're traveling on the Amtrak pass that they have, they do sometimes have limited seats on some trains, but not to the extent that we saw it here in Europe. Certainly, we've learned how to travel in retirement as a result, and the benefit is that we get a lot of flexibility, and so we're not quite as sensitive to the train limitations as a lot of folks would be. But certainly, it's something to be aware of, and particularly when you're going to cancel your ticket, or might have to cancel, is, like I said, the mistake of not knowing that refund policy precisely. But let's talk a little bit now about the next mistake that again, my bad. But the good news is it was my bad, but I'm the only one that had to pay for it because this time I was traveling solo. And that mistake is don't jump on the train just because it seems the train is on time.
That could have totally happened to me. I know for myself, if I had had a ticket in hand and it said Platform 5, 4:20, I wouldn't be reading, is this the right train? I would see it, I'm on Platform 5 and it's 4:20 and the train showed up. I would have gotten on the train too. And it's hard to, until you make that mistake once, it's hard to even imagine a situation where you do that and it isn't the right train. But that was the situation. There were some delays, and Greg's train came a minute later than it was supposed to, and you weren't on it.
Yeah, well, and the irony is that happened. I was in Southampton and I needed to catch a train to London. And why was I going to London? Well, to fix the train ticket issue from what we just talked about, having a refund policy snafu. And that particular day, when I was traveling, well, the trains in the UK were having all kinds of problems, including a strike.
Strikes.
And so the train that came in, their schedule was also messed up. And they had gotten to the point where the trains were almost on top of each other at the station. And so the train rolled in, and it was about 1 minute early based on my departure time. And I thought I was going to miss it. So I jumped on the train quickly. And of course, after the train was rolling, I realized, uh-oh, this looks like the wrong train. And I talked to the conductor, and it turns out, well, in my defense, I was the fourth person who came to him and had the same problem. And the conductor was very sympathetic, kind of laughing about it, telling me what a screwed up day it was with the trains, and why the train I jumped on looked like the train I was supposed to be on, when it was, in fact, 1 minute early from the train I was coming on next and should have been on.
Yeah, at least the sort of happy ending to that story was that they understood and they didn't charge for an extra ticket. So since he had technically the right ticket in hand, right, you were able to get off the train, go back to the original stop, and get on the right train and not pay extra for it. So that was a good thing, but it did kind of slow down the day, of course.
Yeah. So that's jumping on the train too fast. But here's another little tip based on the mistakes we have learned from, and that is this actually happened on a bus, but it could happen on a train and could happen with plane, and that is, don't expect to make short connections. You shouldn't assume that all the connections are going to be made, and even if you're on your first leg of travel and it looks like it's going to be made, you never know what's going to happen until you've actually made that connection.
Yeah, we were on a bus that was scheduled to show up something like about 8 minutes before the train was supposed to leave from that station, and it was just across the street, so it was the easiest little 30-second walk. We'd be on the train platform, no problem, and the bus came on time. The problem was, and not only it came on time, but the upcoming stops, they didn't even have to stop, so there was nobody there. We thought, easy peasy, we're going to be there 8 or maybe even 10 minutes early. We're not stopping anywhere. But maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes at the tops before the station, a big group of students were getting on, teenage students, one after another, each one paying separately. And the last one got into a scuffle with the bus driver that went something like this. Yes, I am 16. No, you're not 16. Yes, I am 16. No, you're not 16. And in the end, the bus driver, after a few minutes, the bus driver accepted him. And this was all about 50 pence. And in retrospect, we could have just paid the 50 pence, which is about 65 cents, and we wouldn't have had a problem. But waiting all the time for all the guys to get on the train, all the boys, and on top of that, this last minute scuffle was just enough so that we were literally running down the stairs to the platform. We would have been on the train in 10 seconds, and we missed it.
Yeah, Deb has traveled a lot in Europe before now, but I'm a newbie as an American retiree in Europe, and certainly I'm learning my lessons about how to travel in retirement, and particularly about European trains, and the train stations, which I'm so impressed with. They're so efficient. It's insane.
Yes, great. Many good things about it. That is so true. And also just, remember, I have done a lot with train travel in Europe, but it was also a very long time ago, and many things have changed. Yeah. So there's still a lot of experiences that are new to me as well. So
one of the really cool things we've seen, for example, is how you can they have contactless ticketing.
That's an amazing thing.
Which really foreign compared to Amtrak, but a lot of the trains here, you just use your credit card,
pop it on the screen, and it just lets you in, and it knows how to charge you from your, I guess in our case it's Apple Pay, and how much you owe based on how far you travel, because you pass it through the screen when you're getting out of the train station as well. It measures the distance if that's the way that they charge you, and then it takes the correct amount. You don't pay extra, and sometimes when you're paying at a window, you're paying a surplus for the convenience of having a person selling you the ticket. So you do this directly through your credit card. You're not paying any of those surcharges at all.
But we have two mistakes related to this convenience. So the first one is, you shouldn't assume that tickets can be purchased on board the train, which we had always assumed. And certainly I had always assumed, based on what I knew of European train travel, that you could pretty much just jump on any train and they can pay the conductor. You may pay a little bigger fee, but you can pay. No, not so much.
Yeah, and so actually when we missed that train by 10 seconds, that was more a blessing in disguise than anything else, because we were just assuming that with all the times that we had paid on the train. This was before we knew that we could just pass credit cards through and pay that way. But we were on the train, and we assumed that we'd just be able to pay the conductor. We were all prepared to say, oh, we didn't have time to get the train ticket, we'll pay now. And there was no conductor there. And the situation was that when you get off, you have to have your ticket with you, and that's the only way that you can get out through the turnstiles. And if you don't have one, the fines are really high. They were something like 400 British pounds, which is 500 and something dollars, and potentially facing jail time. So we could have had a pretty big catastrophe if we hadn't missed that train. So that was a really a mistake, one of the mistakes that we made, that we were just breathing sighs of relief that we made.
And as I said, the other kind of bonus mistake, not in our 9, but was, as Deb had mentioned, is the not taking full advantage of the contactless opportunities at turnstile. Because in one case, what happened, again, my story is I had my ticket on my phone, and lo and behold, my phone wasn't working. That's going to bring us to a little teaser on one of the other mistakes. But as a result of that, I was in a rush and actually used the contactless turnstile to get through, and in the process burned the ticket I had already paid for that was on my phone. Go figure. So understand the contactless system and take advantage of it. That's kind of a bonus mistake and lesson. There's our next lesson is another technology snafu and caution, okay, and that is don't rely solely on Google Maps. We've done that to our own detriment.
Yeah, at least those mistakes didn't ding us too badly, but still, Google Maps had made a few mistakes, such as tell us which was the nearest, let's say, bus station to get to the train station, and we'd be walking a while, and then we'd be coming back to our house and discover that there's a bus station literally across the street from our house that also takes us to the station. So we don't know why it was directing us to a station that was one stop away rather than the one that was right where we were. So there was that. Also, they gave us the wrong timetable. So we thought we were getting I think it was something like a 2:41 train to get, bus to get the train to go to Salisbury. And instead it was something like a 2:48 train. And those 7 minutes made all the difference between being able to catch the train that we planned to catch and not be able to catch it. So because of that, we had to get a cab to get to the train station. And even then, this was actually kind of a mistake, but in our favor. The next train was actually about a minute after we got there. So we didn't have to wait another like 18 minutes for the train. We could just jump on and save some time and get to Salisbury and have a little bit more time to see it, which was great. But the point of this whole thing being that Google Maps got a number of things wrong when we were trying to plan that trip.
Yeah, and kind of the lesson that we learned is, make sure you verify with the locals and the transportation or ticket counters, the transportation website, the details of any travel that you're planning, if they have any kind of complexity at all to those travel plans. So before we get to our final mistake, I just want to say that, on behalf of Deb, thanks for making it this far in our video. If you like what we've had to say, please, it would be great support to us if you'll click that like button.
And subscribe.
And even if you really like us, please share with your friends out on other social media what we're doing here. So with that being said, let's bring us to our final mistake that we made. And as we alluded to a minute ago, it is don't let your phone run out of juice. In this case, I'll tell you what happened, because my joy was I had gone out, as I said, on my Odyssey to fix my ticket, which required, or I thought required, a trip from Southampton to London. Now that trip is about 2 hours, and then I was there at the train station, which is another long and crazy story, which was another hour and a half or 2 hours. And then I decided, well, since I'm in London, I'm going to at least enjoy a little bit of the area and walk around. Another couple hours. And next thing I know, my phone is down to like 15%. Like, well, I got to get back to back to the Airbnb or back to our house sitting spot, and I'm probably 2.5, 3 hours away. So I better start saving my juice. I turned my phone off, and when I got to the train station, I went to turn my phone back on, thinking no problem. I was wrong. The phone didn't work.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems with that is that we all have phones that, we watch the batteries coming down as we're doing things, and we all get worried about it. We think, oh, I have to get to the end of the day. I really need the battery. And because we're really conscious of it, we're paying attention and we're alert and we make sure it doesn't happen. The problem always comes when you start to feel confident that, well, I've been doing this for years and I've never run out of battery. That's when you start to have a problem. And we've been doing so well with that it's very easy to get to the point that you just start to think, well, there's always going to be battery there, no matter what I do. And that's when you start to have problems.
Yeah, and I had assumed that even without the battery, well, I'll be able to charge it on the train. And most of the times you can. So actually, I didn't have a cord, but I bought a cord to the USB cable, USB, so that I could plug it in on the train. And what did I find out? This train didn't accept the USB cable, so no bueno.
The old Murphy Law, when you really need it, that's when it doesn't exist.
Right. Now, there is a solution to this problem. It's the lesson learned. We have, and I didn't take it with me that day, the portable battery chargers.
Do we have it somewhere? Oh, yeah.
And there's one.
Looks like this.
That's one of them. But you can buy all kinds of them, and I didn't have it with me, and I wish I did. But I strongly recommend, if you're going to be traveling for more than a few hours, check your phone before you leave, and in any event, bring some a surplus remote battery pack to help you out. So there are our 9 mistakes and lessons that we have learned. I hope that this will help you too, and like I said, please like and subscribe to our channel.
And if you have similar stories you'd like to share, we would love to read those in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely.